Okay, today we are going to learn how to knit two-color brioche, everyone's favorite, working flat, not in the round. Even if you've never done brioche before, you can do this. It is not difficult, it is just fiddly. But once you get into the rhythm of it, it's actually pretty simple. So, obviously for working two-color brioche, you're going to need two colors. So I will be using this purpley pink yarn for my main color and this green yarn for my contrast color. All right, so the most important thing to remember for working two-color brioche flat is that you are going to work two right side rows and then turn your work and then work two wrong side rows. So for every one row of knit fabric, you're working two rows. This, it compacts the stitches, so it makes the fabric squishier, but it also takes longer to knit. Because in order to get, if your gauge is, if your row gauge is 4 rows to the inch, you would actually have to work 8 rows to get an inch. But let's get started. So for our first setup row, with the main color, I'm going to knit the first stitch. Then I'm going to slip one yarn over. So in brioche, what that means is that I'm going to move the working yarn to the front, slip the next stitch purlwise, and then knit the next stitch without moving the yarn back. Okay? So let's try that again. To do the slip one yarn over before a knit stitch, which is what we're doing on this row, I'm going to bring my yarn to the front. I'm going to slip the next stitch purlwise, and then your instinct would be to move this back. You're not going to do that. You're going to knit the next stitch without moving it back. All right, and you can see that creates a little wrap for this stitch. And for this one that we also did that for. So you're going to do that all the way across the row. Yarn forward, slip one, knit the next stitch. Yarn forward, slip one, knit the next stitch. So we're going to do this all the way across the row. Okay, now we've made it to the end of the row. We are not going to turn our work. We're going to slip the stitches back to the opposite end of the needle and work another right side row. So now we're going to move the main color over here because that's where the working yarn is for that color, and we're going to join our contrast color. Okay. And this is setup row number 2. So what we're going to be doing essentially is using one color to knit and the other color to purl. So we knit this stitch last time with the main color. So what we need to do is to slip that stitch out of the way this time. So with my yarn in front, I'm going to slip that stitch, and then I'm going to what is called brioche purl, which means to purl the next stitch together with its little wrap that we made on the previous row. Okay, so I'm going to purl those 2 stitches together. And now we have to work a slip-one yarn over again. Slip the stitch to the right needle, then bring this to the front by moving around the back, and brioche purl the next 2 stitches together. Okay, slip the next stitch, bring this around the back, and purl these 2 stitches together. And you can see that again you're creating a stitch with a little wrap. So you're going to do that all the way across the row. Slip the next stitch, bring the yarn around the back, purl these 2 together. Slip the next stitch, yarn around the back, purl the next 2 together. Okay, now that we've come to the end, we will turn our work. So now we're going to move our main color back over to the right-hand side, since we'll be using it again. So you will continue throughout this pattern using the yarns this way. Main color, contrast color, main color, contrast color for each row. So now we're going to work a wrong side row with our main color. Just keep your contrast color to the side. So now we're on row 1, wrong side. For this one, what we're going to be doing is purling the first stitch, then we're going to work a slip-one yarn over again. So keep the yarn in front, slip the next stitch, and then we're going to purl, brioche purl. Bring the yarn around the back, purl these 2 together. Okay, slip, purl. Yarn is in front, slip the next stitch, bring the yarn around the back, and purl. Slip, yarn around back, and purl. You can see again what we're doing is working each of these stitches with its little wrap, and we are slipping the stitches that we purled on the previous row. All right, so purl, around back, slip, around back, purl, all the way to the end. Okay, now that we've reached the end, again, we're going to move our main color out of the way to the left, slide our stitches back to the right, to the end of the needle, to work another wrong side row with the contrast color. Okay, so now we're on row 2, wrong side. Now we purled with our contrast color the last time, so that means this time we're going to knit. So the first thing we're going to do is slip that first stitch out of the way, and then we're going to brioche knit. Brioche knit simply means, again, to knit these 2 stitches together, so the stitch and its wrap together. Now we're going to slip 1 yarn over. We are doing it before a purl stitch. So bring yarn to the front, slip the next stitch, and then knit these 2 together without moving the yarn. Okay, so yarn forward, slip this stitch that we just worked in the main color. We don't want to work that again. Bring the yarn around the back. Sorry, to knit the next two together, not to purl. Let's try that again. Yarn forward, slip, then to knit the next two stitches, we bring the yarn around the back. We don't move it forward. Yarn forward, slip, knit next two, and we'll do that all the way across the row. Okay, now we've reached the end of the row, and now we turn our work and move both of our yarns over to our right-hand side again, assuming you are right-handed. All right, so now we've worked 2 setup rows, and we have worked the first 2 rows. Now we are going to work rows 3 and 4, which are right side rows. Now at first, you know, things might look a little unclear. It takes a few rows to get this really going. Okay, so you can see the pattern starting to take shape, but we need a few more rows to really get it looking the way it's supposed to. All right, so let's work the next 2 rows. Now again, we just finished with the contrast color, so now we go back to the main color. Okay, first thing we're going to do is knit this stitch. You can see what we wanted to do on the previous row. We should have a wrap here. So sometimes you get to the end of the row and your yarn, you know, it's naturally going to fall off the needle when you turn. So try to remember to bring it back over. If you forget, it's not the end of the world because it's an edge stitch. You can just work it as a knit one instead of a brioche knit one. Okay, so row 3 with our main color. We knit the first. We need to slip one yarn over, so bring the yarn forward, slip this purl stitch, we're not working that. Then knit the next stitch and its wrap together by bringing the yarn around the back. Yarn forward, slip the next stitch, then knit this stitch with its wrap by bringing the yarn around the back. And we'll do that all the way across. And you can see now what you are essentially doing is skipping the one color of stitches on this row and then going back and starting the row over and knitting or working those stitches with the other color. Right? We're not working the stitches that are done in green. We're working the ones that are done in pink. So we slip the greens out of the way and work the pinks with their wraps. Okay. All right, we're at the end of the row. We move the main color out of the way, and now we do the next row with our contrast color. Got my yarns a little tangled. Hang on a second. There we go. Okay, so now we work the next row, another right side row with the contrast color. So as you can imagine, on this row, we're going to slip the pink stitches out of the way and work the green stitches with the green yarn. So with the yarn in front, we're going to slip this first stitch out of the way. Then we're going to do the brioche purl. So we're going to ring this around the back and purl the green stitch together with its pink wrap. We're going to keep the yarn in front, slip this next pink stitch out of the way, that's a knit stitch, bring the yarn around the back, to purl. And we're going to do that again all the way across. So when you read the brioche instructions, it can seem overcomplicated and fiddly, but in reality all you're doing is working each stitch with the correct color and slipping the ones that you're not going to work. And then we're going to knit the last stitch, or slip the last stitch with yarn and back. All right, now we've used both colors all the way at the end, so now we can turn and work 2 wrong side rows. We just finished with the green, so that must mean we're going to work with the pink, or whatever your main color may be. Okay, purl this first stitch. Now we know that we're not going to work this green stitch, right? Because it's A, green, and B, a knit, so we're just going to slip that out of the way. Then we bring the yarn around the back to purl those two together. And again, we just do this all the way across. Slip that green stitch out of the way, yarn around back, purl. Okay, we've made it to the end with one color. That means we need to go back and work another wrong side row with the contrast color. And see, now you can start to see this two-sided stitch pattern really taking shape. Okay. All right. So now we're going to work with the contrast color. We're going to slip that first stitch out of the way. We're not going to work a pink stitch. Okay. Then the next two are obviously a knit and with a green yarn. So we knit. We're going to slip that next stitch, bring the yarn forward, slip that stitch out of the way, then knit the next two by bringing the yarn around the back. Yarn forward, slip, yarn around the back, yarn forward, slip, yarn around the back. And I'm going to do that all the way to the end of the row. Okay, we've worked all the way to the end, and now you're going to be ready to work the next 2 right side rows. I think you guys are ready to handle this on your own now. You can see this pattern taking shape. You have a dominant pink knit columns on one side, and then you have the dominant green knit columns on the other side, and it is very squishy. So I will leave you with the keys from this. You're always working 2 right side rows and then 2 wrong side rows. You're always working 1 row with your main color, the next row with your contrast color. Whatever color you're not working with, that's the color you're going to be slipping out of the way. So it can take a while to sort of get into a rhythm, but once you've got it, it almost becomes second nature. And I think you'll really enjoy the fabric that it makes and the those contrasting colors popping out on either side. So good luck.